This is going to be another one of those impromptu videos. I'm going to talk about a book series called Alex Rider, which has played such a huge role in helping me become the person I am today. I have the collection of books here. This is all the physical books I have right now. I'm sure I have more somewhere, but I'll have to find that later. So right now I have just these 4 books. I'm going to talk about how these books impacted me growing up and how important these books are for me as a person right now, as a creative person, as an artist, as a storyteller. How influential this book has been for me. Alright. The first time I read a Alex Rider book, it was from British Council Library in Chandigarh. And it was actually not even a proper novel book format, it was a comic book. And I think it is the first book. Yeah. No, it was Point Blank. It was book 2. So I read book 2 first. I was instantly obsessed with the protagonist, Alex Rider. And it was such an interesting story because he is a 14-year-old kid, which was about my age back then. And he was doing these crazy missions, going about everyday life and working with MI6 and all that cool stuff. It immediately inspired me. Like, I know this is fiction. I know I won't be able to do this. But I do have a lot of insanely ambitious ideas that I want to execute. And seeing Alex Rider executing them inspired me to want to execute them myself. To the point, after reading Point Blank, I immediately went and read the first book, Stormbreaker. I read that in a novel format because at that time, I don't think I was able to find a comic for it. Then I read The Skeleton Key. Yeah, so on and so forth. Rest is history. So what happened with me was, I was so obsessed with Alex Rider, the storytelling of Alex Rider, that I began writing my own stories. So I remember we had a trip to Himachal Pradesh with family, and while going on a bus ride, we were taking a bus to go to Shimla. I kept thinking about this particular storyline that came to my mind. What if this took place in a world like Alex Rider, where I was a spy? So in Alex Rider, he is a 14-year-old spy. So I like, as soon as the whole trip got over, I couldn't stop thinking about this story. I came home and took like a old classic classmate notebook and started writing it down with pen, the stories. It was so much fun. Like it is one of my favorite memories, but I'm so sad I couldn't find that notebook no more. But it's definitely somewhere. I'll have to search for it. But that's how inspiring and influential this was when I was young. It literally made me write more. Before Alex Rider, I had 2 other big influential books, which were Enid Blyton's Secret 7 series and also R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about these books, these 4 books. 5, sorry. And I'll start with this one because Scorpia. This, in my opinion, is the best Alex Rider book of the whole series. And this is where I knew that I had to finish this series somehow. Like, up until, let's say, Eagle Strike, I was just having fun. There wasn't a lot of stakes in the story, but it was so entertaining and fun. But this book takes a dark turn to such an extent where this doesn't feel like a kid's book. Honestly, this can compete with, I truly believe that this book can compete with a lot of James Bond stories. In terms of spy stories, this is the best. This is one of the best stories I've ever read. To the point, I literally, okay, I'm going to snitch myself right now. This is a library copy from British Council Library. I loved this book so much after reading it that I had to take it home. I basically didn't return the book. For some reason, the library didn't figure it out, so I still have this copy. Yeah. So that's how much I love this book. So this story deals with this secret organization called Scorpia, and it has so many fascinating concepts about weapons, like such unique weapons using satellites, nanotechnology. But even though these usage of technology might seem overly fancy, the core of this book is so simple and so human. I love it. It's about Alex Rider dealing with his past, trying to figure out who he really is. There's a dichotomy with Alex Rider where he has to figure out whether he is fit for the life of crime or life of justice or crime fighting or the spy life. It's a fascinating book that delves deep into the psychology of our protagonist. I love it. And as always, great villains, great technology, great weaponry. I don't know how to describe it better than that, but amazing read. Oh yeah. Next one is Archangel. This is one cool thing I love about Alex Rider copies is that they have so many different covers. So I kind of like that almost all my books look slightly different. This book has a beautiful memory for me because I bought this. I remember I went to my grandparents' house in Martanda and I ordered this to be delivered via Amazon. And this was during, I think, summer vacation. I'm not entirely sure. I have such a beautiful memory of me lying down on the cozy bed in Martanda in my grandparents' place and just reading, just like going through this book. And even this book has a different font compared to the rest. And just by looking at the font, it gives me some sort of nostalgia. Just looking at this font, I can recall certain scenes. Something about the font and the scenes trigger a weird visual lock and key mechanism, and I feel something unlocked while going through it. This was not the best book, I'd say, from the series, but it's again a fun read. The villain was goofy. He's literally a bald guy with maps tattooed all over his head. It's funny, but again, it's a good read. At least for the time when I read it, I had a good time. Nowhere close to this, but I don't think there's no book that was able to surpass Scorpia except one which came close. But I'll get to that later. So yeah, this is again a very beautiful book. But before I talk about Russian roulette, I'll talk about this in the end. Okay. Scorpio Rising. I was so excited to read this book because I read this book after my 10th grade. So interesting thing about me is that I used to read a lot of books consistently up until 10th grade. Because after 10th grade, your teachers, parents, relatives want you to focus on your studies. It's kind of ironic and funny how in the name of education they make you stop reading. So after 10th I struggled to read books again. I stopped reading books for a long period of time, and I think this was the first book I convinced myself to read after 10th, because it's continuation of my favorite book from the series, Scorpia. It's called Scorpio Rising. But this was underwhelming. It didn't live up to my expectation of Scorpia. Maybe I don't know. This was interesting though. It had a very creative villain, but maybe I was expecting too much of Scorpia and this was just trying to be something different with the organization Scorpia back, but not the character and emotional depth Scorpia had. So yeah, but this was also again a fun ride because it got me back into reading after my break after 10th grade. So this is still a very important book for me. And one other thing about Anthony Horowitz's writing I would like to talk about is how easy he makes the books to read. Like, his books are page turners. You can criticize the quality of writing, or maybe also the character motives or the goofiness of the villains, some of them, but you can't deny how engaging his books are. So always appreciate Anthony Horowitz's writing. Okay, so the next book I want to talk about is Crocodile Tears. Again, this is I have a fond memory with this book because I read this right before we were leaving from Chandigarh. So we were living in Chandigarh for a while and we had to shift back to Kerala. So this book has this book is interesting. Look at the red page coloring. I don't know what it's called, but yeah. And this book kind of paralleled the transition I was having in life from moving from Chandigarh to Kollam. In that cool way, I love this book. But again, this book has a lot of goofiness in it. He goes to... Alex Rider does a lot of interesting stuff in this book. He goes to the Amazon forest, does weird boxing matches, illegal boxing matches, fights crocodiles. The villain is very interesting. If I remember correctly, I'm having a little hard time recalling the villain in this. But I remember having an interesting time reading it. I can say that much for sure. So yeah, this is again a fun, goofy. I don't want to use goofy too much, and I don't think this book was that goofy. Yeah, it was just a really good, engaging read. I'll say that. And for the time when I was reading this, I had a great time. Alex Rider, Crocodile Tears. So the final book that I want to talk about, I'm so happy I found the copy for it, is Russian Roulette. Damn! So remember I told you my favorite book in the series is Scorpia? This book is a close second. It's such a close second that I might even consider this like, I don't know, these both are really, really, really good books. Incredible books. Yeah. So the thing about this book is that it's not even about Alex Rider. It's about this character called Yasin Grigorovich, who is kind of a reoccurring villain throughout the series, throughout the Alex Rider series. He's a Russian assassin. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, Yasin Grigorovich, but he's one of the main reoccurring villains throughout the series, and this book is his origin story, kinda, and it's beautifully executed. Damn. Just like thinking about certain scenes in this, certain storylines, story beats, gives me chills. It's such a beautiful story because it shows, at the core, both Yasin and Alex Rider are very similar. Remember I told you this book explores the dichotomy of Alex being a good guy versus being a bad guy. This is kind of like that. But in this, at the end, Alex chooses good, but Yasin chooses evil. Again, this book is not that simple. You see why the choices were made. The environment. It also explores the concepts and themes of nature versus nurture. And so much fascinating things about human characteristics, human nature, and how we evolve as a person. So I love this book so much. These two books have influenced me so much till this very day. I don't think I'll ever be able to find a series that means this much to me, because this is not even a genre that I love that much. I just read it for the sake of. I just started reading it because back in the day we didn't have internet, we didn't have Instagram reels to distract us. We had books. So this is the kind of book I'm so glad I bumped into when I was young, and I'm so glad it has influenced me into becoming the person I am, into the creative artist slash comic artist slash writer slash whatever I am. So huge thanks to Anthony Horowitz. If you're watching this video, I just wanna let you know that how great of a writer and how influential you have been in my life, and how much I love your books series. It's incredible. And funnily enough, I have tried reading Anthony Horowitz's other books, but I never could get into it. This is the only book by Anthony Horowitz, the only series that has stuck with me for such a long time. And yeah, that's about it. And if you have never read this book before and would like to read these books, I would recommend you give it a try. There's a quote in somewhere that I find it very fascinating. I'll share it with you. So, where is it? Yep. So there's a quote by the Daily Mirror on Scorpia. This quote is something that I resonate with, and I strongly believe. Horowitz is a pure class, stylish but action-packed. Being James Bond in miniature is way cooler than being a wizard. No, sorry, this is not the quote. Okay, so just before I could end the video, the recording stopped because lack of storage in my phone. Anyway, so I just want to end the video. Huge thanks to Anthony Horowitz for creating this series. And I hope as a viewer you found this interesting and you enjoyed this video. And that's about it. Thank you. See you in the next video.